master section. Starting at the top, we see 4 LEDs used to determine that proper power level is available at the console, as well as an oscillator that's used by the maintenance department for calibrating the tape machines. The oscillator can be sent to the quad bus or group outs, or even sent to the patch bay where it can be routed wherever you like. Just know that these should all be on and you'll be fine. Talkback level controls. The 3 talkback level knobs are used to raise and lower the volume of the talkback mic built into the center section of the console. Since our Studio C does not have any studio loudspeakers or any listen mics set up, you'll primarily only need to concern yourself with making sure that the talkback to cans knob is turned up to an appropriate level for the musicians recording to hear you. If this knob is all the way down and you forget to turn it up, you'll simply have to yell at the top of your lungs to be heard. So, turn it up. Q aux masters. Just as every large VCA fader feeds the master fader, so all of the aux sends also feed aux masters. While this should be obvious, it's unbelievable how many people will forget this on a routine basis. One cool thing about these masters is that they also provide a high and low shelving EQ for overall sweetening before the signal goes to the headphone amps or effects units. Stereo echo returns. The stereo returns are nothing more than 4 stereo line input modules into the console that feed only the quad bus. No routing buttons necessary. They're typically used as extra stereo inputs to return the wet signal of effects devices, such as delays and reverbs into the console, hence the moniker Stereo Echo Returns. As is found in many studios, our echo returns 1 and 2 are normaled at the patch bay to the 2 stereo outputs of the Lexicon 480L reverb, whose inputs are in turn normaled to mono aux send 1 and 2. This allows us to quickly send specific channels out to a world-class reverb and immediately return the wet signals into the console with no patching whatsoever, allowing a quick and easy mix with a little bit of reverb on the side. However, other than these 2 being normaled at the patch bay for the sake of convenience, there is no direct correlation between the aux sends and the aux returns. All sends and returns can be easily routed out to any effects device and routed back in to any of the 4 stereo returns, or to the line inputs of any of the I/O modules. We'll look at this more later when we look at the patch bay. This is all done on the patch bay and should be clearly understood for the proficiency test. Consider yourself warned. The knobs found in the stereo returns include a volume knob, which should typically be run fully clockwise at unity gain, a balance knob for panning, individual cuts for both the right and left side of the return, as well as a post-fader solo button. The width knob, located directly above the balance knob, allows the engineer to control how wide the image of the stereo return is, ranging from fully stereo to the left to a mono signal returning when turned to the right. Again, due to a lack of quad in Studio C, we won't use the front-back button. The 3 Q buttons and the cans knob allow the engineer to feed the effect return, such as a reverb, into any of the 3 Q systems, for musicians who might like a little effect mixed in with their headphone sound. Finally, the spin knob, with its corresponding in button, can be used to make a feedback loop by routing the returning signal back into its correspondingly numbered auxiliary send. While this should be used with care, if at all, some interesting effects can be generated by making use of the spin knob. Turn it up and try it out. Quad compressor. Sometimes called the God compressor, this compressor can be easily switched in across the outputs of the quad bus to give that fat slamming sound that is the sound of modern music. This compressor is so revered for its sound, they've even made a Pro Tools plugin to give DAW users the SSL compressor sound. While it has the same parameters typically found on any compressor, one big advantage is that it uses the same VCAs as the master fader, and hence doesn't add any extra circuits to the signal path. Our main monitor volume knob controls the overall volume of the wall-mounted boxer speakers as well as the NS10 monitors, which are accessed by pressing the Alt button. Also, the mini loudspeaker volume knob controls the levels for the small Optimus computer speakers, which are accessed by the mini monitor button. The dim level knob allows you to set the dim volume for when the dim button is pressed by a dim width. For example, when your mother calls in the middle of a session to find out how late you're going to be out, the dim button will turn the music down, but not off, letting her know that you really are a hard-working recording engineer, and not just a slacker getting a fake college degree. While all of these monitors are typically fed by the master fader, if you want to listen to the studio CD player, DAT player, or even the reel-to-reel deck, you must select the appropriate input on the external to monitors matrix of external inputs. For example, selecting Stereo 2 and pressing the external to monitors button, the outputs of the CD player will now be heard over the control room speakers, and the output of the console and master fader will be temporarily overridden. VCA trims and auto fades. These handy-dandy buttons come in real useful at times. The VCA trim button allows the engineer to reduce the level of all VCA faders set to the 0 group wheel by up to 15 dB. This is useful if all of your VCA levels are too hot and are thus overloading your master VCA fader. The VCA trim button and knob simply allow each VCA to be dropped a few dB, solving the problem. The auto fade control is used to set an automatic fade in or fade out from 1 to 60 seconds for the master fader. It makes it very simple to get a smooth fade in or out on the beginning or end of your song by simply setting the length of the fade with the knob and activating the auto fade button when you want the fade to start. The after fader listen knob allows you to solo instruments in the monitor system only, but without cutting all of the other modules going to their respective outputs in either the routing matrix or the stereo bus. This is great for being able to solo and listen to specific tracks even while you're tracking, because the other modules are only cut to the monitor system and not the multi-track or mixdown decks. Quad meters, buttons, and display. For those about to rock, we salute you. Even still, before you go pegging those massive master LEDs above the SSL computer screen in the wall, be sure you know what they're showing by looking at the quad meters button to determine where they're getting their signal from. For starters, the desk output button will set the meters to show what's coming from the master fader / quad bus. This will be most akin to what your mixdown deck will be seeing level-wise. The follow monitor button shows what's being heard from the monitors, or in other words, will be most like what you're actually hearing. Lastly, the external source button shows the level heard from the external to monitors matrix, such as that unbelievably cool reference CD you keep bringing in, which, let's face it, will probably be louder and sound better than anything you or I will ever mix. So why abuse ourselves by even looking at it? While your parents may think that communication has something to do with the degree you should be really getting, you know that it's really just another section found on the SSL console. Made up of 9 buttons arranged in a cute little square, these are your studio walkie-talkie for shouting orders, production tips, and encouragement to your rhythmically challenged clients. The cues button will allow you to talk to all of your headphone mixes at the same time, which is good for general feedback, jokes, or bad recording engineer cliches like, "We're rolling." Or, if you just want to talk smack about the bass player, or tell a drummer joke to the vocalists and guitars, just press the appropriate cue stereo, Q1, or Q2 that they're receiving their mix from. However, always be aware of accidentally pressing the wrong button, or you might just find yourself having a drumstick removed in the local emergency room. We don't currently have any listen mics in Studio C, but if we did, these listen mic buttons would route them to either the tape machine or the loudspeakers in the control room. We've also got no cool red light for our red light button to warn people that recording is in process. But if it makes you feel good, press it anyway. Omni is the button you press to send the talkback to every freaking output on the console. If you can't seem to get your talkback working, and you're sure everything is hooked up right, and the Talkback to Cans knob is up, hit the Omni button and you should be in business. Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning about the SSL console with us today. Check us out again later for some more in-depth coverage on the patch bay, timecode, compression, mixing, EQ, and other fun issues in the world of recording. We'll see you later.